What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I am going to take a look at the recently added Mercedes-Benz, and if you did want to get technical, it is going to be the 4MATIC Plus, which of course is going to mean four-wheel drive. But I have to admit though, looking at this car right now, I have only seen one of these in real life, and I have to admit, seeing this thing in the game, it does honestly look pretty dang awesome. Now we do know the SL model is going to take over the GT from the previous years, which, by the way, those are one of the best looking cars ever. It's also going to remain having the lovely V8 bi-turbo, which still sounds incredible. You know, I really do have to give it to Ubisoft with the car sounds in Motorfest. Like, these things sound absolutely incredible. And being around one of the V8 bi-turbos recently, I have to admit, this thing sounds legit almost identical to it. Now, looking at the vehicle here, you're going to see lots of carbon fiber around it. And of course, it's also going to be a convertible, which, by the way, you can customize it and add a top to the vehicle if you would like to. I will show more of that here in a quick second, but I really do like the rims that are currently on this vehicle, which of course when you do get it, which currently, by the way, if you have the season pass, this vehicle is free to you. If you do want it though, you can actually buy this card next Wednesday, which by the way I would recommend doing. So far from the little driving I have done with it, this thing is most likely going to be a pretty decent car. We also have a very nice looking interior, which is of course going to be a Mercedes signature. I really do like the initial instrument cluster there. I really do not understand how it goes out into the RPMs. That's going to be slightly different, but it has the bars going up on the right and the left side as well. You also see the time on the bottom left. So at least if you are trying to do some of the challenges, or maybe you're looking for a specific time in the game, at least this car has a timer. Now from what I can see, I do not see a gear indicator in there, but at least you can see the initial RPMs going up. And then of course you also see the detail of the initial car itself. You can see every single button, like the S Plus mode button there. I really do like the fact that you can see every button in the vehicle. And then the elephant in the room is probably going to be that gigantic screen on the middle of the car. I don't think they can actually make that any bigger than that. If they basically made it slightly bigger, it's probably going to take up most of the entire car. I also would like to know what you guys think about these huge screens showing up in basically every new vehicle. I do understand having technology in the car, but can we also have buttons and stuff, and maybe a tiny screen that isn't insanely technological? That way, if something in the car does break, it's not going to cost an arm and leg to fix it. Because I would say something like that is probably going to be a nightmare to repair. But overall though, the interior in this vehicle is going to look pretty dang awesome, which by the way, you can customize it. Now the SL63 is also going to come with a decent amount of customization, which I have to say is probably a bit shocking. Then again, normally many of the Mercedes cars do tend to have a bit of customization to them. For me, I'm most likely going to keep the car red because I like the way it complements it. Also looking at the black rims on the vehicle look amazing, but for the hoods though, there is going to be around 7 other hoods you can add to the vehicle. So the second one is going to have the vents on the back of it, which for me, I'm most likely going to pick that one. And then of course the second one, we have a full carbon fiber hood. And then after that, we also have the vents on the back and being carbon. And then of course we have this one. Moving over to the carbon version of that one, then after that we also have way too many vents on the vehicle. Then again, I do know the V8 bi-turbos do tend to be pretty dang hot, so maybe having a lot of vents on that might end up helping it breathe a bit better. And then moving over to the next part is going to be the front bumpers now. So we do have the regular one right here, which I have to admit does look pretty dang nice as a stock bumper. It's going to be kind of weird because sometimes you have to change the vehicle around and of course maybe make it slightly better, but whoa, that actually looks really nice. Yeah, yeah, really nice. And I do have to say though, no, really nice. And I really do think it almost complements the front of the vehicle because you are going to see the black matching the rest of the vehicle there, and also all of the carbon fiber on the bottom. I also do want to start something in the comments, by the way. What do you guys think about chrome versus a black or a matte finish? Which at the same time though, I would say a lot of players are most likely going to pick a matte black finish over something like a chrome, and that's probably going to come down to how bright like chrome does look on certain vehicles. And in some ways I do feel like it just doesn't look that good. But for the next bumper though, it is going to add on like a bigger piece on the side of the bumper on the right and left side of it. And then of course the next one after that is going to be like a full carbon fiber piece. And it's also going to have like a paint matching thing right there in the middle, which honestly looks pretty dope. I'm not sure how I feel about that splitter, but I guess depending on the build you actually go for would probably look pretty dang nice. And then of course the one after that is going to be like a GT style of a car, which by the way though guys, I do want to know in the comments below, the things holding up the splitter on the bumper, are those going to be for show or do they actually have a purpose? I'm honestly not insanely familiar with like GT style of bumpers like that, but I would say it does look pretty dang awesome on the vehicle. That one's even bigger, my goodness. But I really do not know what those actually do serve a purpose for. Now, I do know the splitter is obviously huge, so it's most likely going to be like a supporting brace for it. But now moving over to the front bumpers, or I guess you could say the front fenders, part of the front bumper. But the first one, though, I probably will end up keeping on the vehicle because it makes like the side, I think that's a vent, or maybe it's like a piece of the car. It basically turns it into like a chrome piece for the second one, which of course I'm not really liking. And then the third one is going to be a wide body kit, making this car way too thick for its own good. And I would say most people are probably not going to run that, but who knows, maybe in the future we might end up seeing a crazy looking Summit car based on this one. And I would say that's probably a possibility, but moving over to the next thing is going to be the rims themselves. So for me, when I did get the vehicle, I did end up having these on the car originally, but there is going to be a few more, which surprisingly with this Mercedes is going to have a total of 5 regular rims you can add to it. And then of course you also have the other 81 rims that probably look awful, like what is that? Also, can I mention something by the way, guys? Why are the rims in the game like a weird chrome finish? Like, I do not like the way these look on basically any vehicle. And depending on the time of day in the game, they honestly look awful. I really do feel like they most likely need to change that like yesterday. But moving over to the next part, we then have the caliper colors, which for me, I will most likely leave those black though. Then again, matching them to the car does look kind of not matching them actually. That kind of does. Let's add that to it. Then we have these side mirrors. So the regular ones on the car are carbon fiber. And then of course you also have the painted ones. And then moving over to these skirts now, I do like the base skirts because it's like going to be a nice matte finish to it. And of course you also have the carbon wrapping around it. Now, we also have like a chrome finish, so you could have the entire car set up like that, but let's be honest, a lot of people will most likely not do it. And then of course we also have a full carbon fiber skirt there. Then we also have that one, which would most likely match the big front like splitter bumper on it. And then of course we also have the final one, which is fully carbon. And then for the rear fenders, we are going to have a total of 5 other ones you can add to the vehicle, including a full top on the car if you want it, which I do think that's going to be a soft top, which by the way, let me know what you guys think about these soft tops as well. I do feel like it's going to have a lot of mixed opinions, like what is that? Is that like pink? Am I tripping? Is that pink? I think that's pink. Weird. Then we also have the no top there, which is going to add like the wide body kit to the vehicle. And then with the wide body kit, you can also add like the top to the vehicle as well, plus the other color. Which, by the way, I could be wrong on the material on that. Like, I don't know if it's actually like a pink one. Again, let me know in the comments below if I am wrong, which I probably am. But moving over to the rear wings now, so we have the base one here. After that, we have a painted like matte black finish type of one. It's probably like a clean finish. Then we have like a ducktail type there. And then for the next one though is going to be an actual wing on the back of the vehicle, which is fully carbon fiber. You also see like the red line going on the back of the wing, which does look pretty dang cool, but I have to admit though, I'm not sure how I actually feel about this one. Like, yeah, it is going to fit the vehicle decently, but I kind of feel like it's thrown on there. And of course the next wing is going to be even bigger. Most likely going to come down to like the build on the car that you are looking for. Like a wide body with like the crazy diffusers and stuff like that with like the canyards. And also like the big front splitter is probably going to look great. Now for this one though, you are going to notice the first initial bumper on this is going to be the regular one. You're also then going to notice the SL63 and like the Mercedes emblem being like a regular finish. Moving over to the second one though does black them out. And my goodness, that looks so dang good on this vehicle. And then of course we also have this one, which is not that great. And then for some of the other bumpers, I did notice some of them are going to remove like the carbon fiber on the bottom, also making the exhaust tips a tad different on some of them as well. And then you can also see like the racing rear bumper here, which would probably look cool with a wide body kit. And of course, probably a big wing on the top there. You can probably make this car look insane. And then of course, moving over to the next one is similar to the others. And finally, moving over to the last ones is pretty much the same thing. Now, if the car was white or something, I would actually add something like a red interior to it, but because the car is red, I am going to add like the peanut butter type of color. Also, let's have this just on the stitching part of the vehicle. And then, of course, after that, you can add like the Alcantara type of interior, which you can also see on like the dash and the seats. And then finally, the last part is going to be the carbon fiber finish on the middle part. Now, I did want to do a top speed test, or at least take the new Mercedes for a test drive on the highway to at least see what this car can actually do and how it does perform. One thing I did notice right off the bat though is it is going to be a 9-speed transmission, so if you are running manual, do be prepared to shift pretty dang often. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be a bad thing though, but if you are doing like grand races or even like regular events in this game, you are most likely going to have a small learning curve when like going around the corners and at least being in the exact right gear every time you do it. But initially I did get the car to go around 244 miles an hour here, so I would say the top speed on this Mercedes is going to be fairly decent. Considering many of the tier 2 vehicles I have driven before barely hit 235, I would probably say in some ways the Mercedes might actually be one of the faster street cars, and I would most likely admit a lot of players might end up trying it out, including myself, to see what this thing can do in a summit. Keep in mind though, once again, having a 9-speed transmission in manual is going to be a bit of a learning curve. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be a bad thing though, but like, the overall acceleration on this vehicle is definitely going to be pretty dang impressive, and I would say it's probably one of the better ones. Now, I did want to jump into one of my favorite events in this game. I also did mischief there because I'm not used to the 9-speed transmission, but I did want to jump into an event on level 5 to, go against the AI. And of course, first Fred in that lovely Audi R8. I don't know what he has in that car, but I definitely need that in mind. Now, there's a few things I did want to talk about with the SL here, so I have to admit, like, my overall first impressions, I do like this car, and I definitely recommend getting it when it does come out. Of course, if you do not have the season pass, like, at this moment, but overall, I would say this car is probably going to be a pretty decent car for the most part. In some ways, I would even say this car might actually be one of the better street Tier 2 vehicles, at least that we have seen recently. I do know a lot of the Tier 2 vehicles probably aren't going to be like the greatest for summits, but if you are looking to try out a vehicle, I think this car can actually do pretty dang good. It's not only going to have some really nice acceleration, but the overall speed on it, I would say, is going to be pretty dang good for the most part. Like, yeah, it is indeed going to be a 9-speed, as I did mention before. If you are running automatic, that's obviously not going to matter. If you are running manual, though, I would say getting used to this vehicle isn't going to be terrible. The number one thing I would say with these cars, though, like for me when I do first jump into them, I normally do tend to like jump into different events and try to test out like the transmission around different corners. That way at least I can get like a general idea of how to be faster in them. And of course, on the flip side of that, you're also learning the car at the exact same time. Like, you can go in, change around the transmission a bit. Also, maybe like lower the gearbox or like change around the settings on it to at least maybe get the car to really fit your style as perfectly as it can. Now, I would say though, one of the biggest things about the SL is probably going to be the fact that it's now a different car. I do want to know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Like, are you going to be a fan of the SL design, or do you like the previous GT design before this one? I would probably say it's going to be a fairly obvious choice. Like, the GT was a great looking car, but you really can't see like the same DNA in this vehicle when looking at it. Sure, it's probably going to look a lot different, and it's going to be updated. It's also going to have a very interesting like cluster in it as well. Like, when you are driving the vehicle, it's going to go like outwards, kind of like a pulsating heart, or even like something like a shockwave going out for like a radio station. But I was a bit worried about the SL when I did first jump into this vehicle, and that's most likely going to come down to some of the other Mercedes not being that great. I do kind of hate to say that, but some of the cars are just not that good. Whether it's for like a summit or even like PvP, you probably just won't use them. But I do think the SL here is going to be a different story. Like, not only is the acceleration on this car going to be fantastic, it's also going to have some pretty dang good handling for the most part, which is probably going to come from the lovely all-wheel drive system it does have. So it is most likely going to be fairly similar to like a Lamborghini Huracan. Is it going to be as good as that car? Well, I will most likely have to test out this vehicle a bit more, but initially I would probably say no. But at the same time, I do think the SL is going to be a really good car for not only summits, but even PvP. I would like to know what you guys think about the new SL in the comments below. Are you a huge fan of the way this car is now designed, or do you actually prefer the GT version of it, or the older model, in the previous years?